the organ itself, which controls literally everything. Why is it that we just pump out medications and do counseling, but we don't actually look at the organ that's driving it all? It's never a mental health problem, it's a brain health problem.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Amanda Maddalena. She is a peak brain performance coach, registered dietitian. Today we're going to talk about going to the gym. We're going to talk about going to neuro gym. And we're going to talk about how that can both combine to help you create a future that you love and that you desire. And Amanda, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I always love to just begin with, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up in this space?
All right, we'll try to keep it short and sweet. So I am a licensed brain health practitioner. I also have my master's degree in nutrition science. And so long time ago, I got into bodybuilding. I was an athlete in school and then went to college, and I was in the bodybuilding space for such a long time. Loved it. It served me. But I quickly found that I had lost myself in the whole bodybuilding world with competing. I was put all of my focus on my appearance. And I thought that if I looked a certain way, then I would be happier. I would be healthier. I'd be more confident. Like my life would be miraculously different. And then my career would take off because I had a personal training studio at the time. I was like, this is it. I just got to compete. I got to look really good and my life will change. Well, that did not happen. I was competing and I was the most miserable I ever was. I was lonely. I was dealing with a lot of hormonal problems from chronic dieting for such a long time. So I had to go through my whole healing journey of really finding out who I am. And so that took years, and simultaneously I was building business. And then I had an in-person studio for a while doing consults and doing training. COVID hit and it had pushed us online, which honestly was a blessing in disguise. I was able to focus more on the nutrition piece, which I loved, and a lot of the mindset work. I had gone through my healing journey. I was confident. I was focusing on not just the weight loss piece, but really helping women build confidence and focus on their health. And so I crushed it. I had built a very successful business online, loved it. And in 2021, I actually lost my father to suicide. And that had just propelled me in such a different direction. It changed my whole life. He was the epitome of the health and fitness space. He got me into the weight room. He was a power lifter. He coached me in soccer. We were best friends. And so that to me was like, I got to do more digging. Like, how does this happen? And he ran a small grocery store in my local hometown, and just the stress and the anxiety, the overwhelm, and not knowing how, like not having an outlet to do so and to take care of himself, it was hard and he couldn't handle it. And so he did all of the right quote unquote things. He went to the counseling sessions. He was going and getting different medications. And like I'll tell you, it was just, here's a pill, here's a pill, here's a pill. And that did more harm than good. And so that had led me got that phone call. I was in a dark place for probably a year, and I had a hard time transitioning back into my business because I felt like it was so superficial. I felt like, God, we're bitching about what our bodies look like and carbohydrates and sugar. And there's just like, I'm like, I can't, this isn't it. This isn't it, because it's so much deeper. And that actually led me down neuroscience and learning about the brain. And I found Dr. Amen, and I went through his practitioner program, and it was just unbelievable. It changed my whole life, looking at, okay, why do we never look at the brain? The organ itself, which controls literally everything. Why is it that we just pump out medications and do counseling, but we don't actually look at the organ that's driving it all? It's never a mental health problem. It's a brain health problem. And so that has led me on my trajectory now today of all my coaching is focused on brain health. And I also have MindSync Solutions, which is a business that goes into companies and corporations to really help employees reduce the stress. Because where do most people spend their time? At work. So how can we integrate this health, this brain health focus inside of businesses and corporations as well?
Wow, that is amazing. Okay, so first, I'm sorry about your father. That is the worst thing. Um, I used to take 33 pills a day, and I was in a mobility scooter. And it's like you said, they're just like, here's one pill, and then, oh, that didn't work. Here's another one. Take another one. And that's like, dude, man, when we're taking 22 or 20 pills and they're not working, why are we going to go up to 33? And luckily, I feel very fortunate that I just said no one day and I just changed it. And so I went from a mobility scooter and now I'm running marathons, which is absolutely insane.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so Dr. Amen, if people don't know, he has this beautiful TED talk, something about what he learned from 80,000 brain scans or something like this. But it talks about all the things we're going to probably, some of them we're going to get into. Before we get more into that brain health, peak performance, when you're bikini fitness, what do you call it? Weightlifting?
Yeah, bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding, sorry. So in order to do that, like the nutrition values are messed, right? Like you're starving yourself, then you're not starving, you're overgorging. And so it said you played with your hormones. So I guess I want to know about the peak, the brain, but also like as far for women, hormones, perimenopause, menopause, and things like diet, how much they play a role in, and it will end up rolling right into the brain health too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like what you put into your body drives everything. Like food literally is fuel. And so, especially for women, and again, speaking from my experience as well, is chronic dieting. We often are barely eating anything because there's this stigma in society that we have to look a certain way. Or, for myself, it was like the smaller and the fitter, the prettier, or the more attention, right? We often associate smaller, which is better. And that's just bizarre. But we do whatever it takes to become smaller. And so whether it's injections, whether it's starving ourselves and beating ourselves up in the gym, it actually does more harm than good. And I actually found I did 28 or 29 weeks of dieting, like hard, super strict. I was in the gym for almost 2 hours a day. I was up at the gym at 4 in the morning, then I would go back. It was wild. And the most extreme, and I competed and I was the leanest I ever was, but I didn't think I was. I was like, oh, that's never enough. It's never enough. But that's the thing, right? When we put all of our focus on what the scale says, or even like money or this get external factors and validations, if that's how we live our life, it's never enough. None of it's ever enough. I was 106 pounds on stage and it wasn't enough. And so I had this whole epiphany of like, when will it be enough? It won't. And so going throughout, and I had lost my cycle, which for women, if you lose your menstrual cycle, that's a really bad sign. Like your menstrual cycle is a monthly report card of like you're in good health. So lost it for a year because I was so small and that had messed so much with my digestion. And not to get too graphic, but I was running a personal training studio and I could not stay out of the bathroom. Like every other session, I was running to the bathroom because my whole insides were so messed up. And then I actually was not eating a whole lot, but I was gaining a ton of weight. And I see this so much with women. They're like, I'm barely eating anything. My calories are so low. I'm working out like crazy. Why am I gaining weight? This whole concept of metabolic adaptation happens. And so that actually is the reverse effect. And women men, it happens to men as well, but I feel like women, the population I work with, we see this all the time. So it's like starving yourself actually is not the answer.
Right. So there's so much in there. I want to know difference between dieting and fasting, but before that, 12 months to not have your cycle that's the definition of menopause. Like that's how you know, which is crazy because that's not what happened. Um, Michael Beckwith, I don't know if you know him, but he has this thing about growth through experience, growth, learning, growth. I'm not sure how to put it, but he calls it Kensho and Satori. Kensho means you got to go really low. So like me going way down in the valley, 33 pills, and then finally just, and then the other one, Satori, that's just an aha moment, an epiphany, you said. And so what was the epiphany? I know you said like this isn't healthy, but was there something like that actually happened where you're like, man, I saw this thing or somebody said a thing and I heard a song, a lyric, or was there anything like that?
So there was a couple moments, and it was the fact that I had lost my cycle. I was coming right off of a show. I just did a national show, and I had qualified to progress forward. And with my coach that I was working with at the time, they were like, "You've got to push harder." And I'm like, "How much harder can I push?" Like I'm tanked out, and my personality is I do everything at 100 and all at once. So during the show I was prepping for, I was also finishing up my master's degree. I was also running an in-person training studio. Like I was trying to build a business. So I was spread so thin and I was so exhausted. And I was like, let's give it a go. I tried it for maybe 2 weeks of pushing a little harder, and my body was rejecting me. That was when I couldn't stay out of the bathroom. That was when I was actually gaining weight. And I'm like, this isn't it. And so was like, I don't know. I was questioning my coach. So I looked for a different mentor. I had a call, but it was more of a spiritual mentor. Little did I know. And they had asked me, they were like, so tell me about you. Like who is Amanda? And I was like, wow. And I went through the list of like, well, I like to work out, I prep my food, I run a gym, and that was it. And they were like, but what do you love? Like, what do you love to do? What are your hobbies? What is your like dreams for life? And I had no answer because that was my life. And my goodness, I was 22, 23. I'm like, how sad. I'm like, this is my life. Like, and so that just flipped the switch. I'm like, I don't want this to be my life. I feel like crap. I'm gaining weight like crazy. My business is not killing it. I'm like, something has to change. And so from there, I was like, I'm done. And I never went back to competing again.
Amazing. That's so powerful, right? It's such a weird thing that humans like we have to like face this in order to like say, oh, okay. And the thing about that coach asking you about dreaming, I think part of what happens is no one's ever asked that question. Maybe when you're a little kid, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? But when we turn adults, we don't ask that question. Some of us feel guilty for thinking about it, and we're just supposed to accept what we have and be happy about it. But I'm on a different page of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it was interesting. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were explaining that when we are children, we're often taught to fit in more. Like we want your kids to have friends and fit in and do things. Like, you don't want them to be quote unquote lonely or different, right? But then as you get into, college, being an adult, like you want to be different. You want to stand out, right? So it's this weird shift, which I was like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess I'd like to talk now about brain health and maybe is there ways that you can know that you're neglecting your brain health? And then from there, we'll figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting because we often don't think about the organ itself. Like I never did until like we all know like the brains are super important. We all know like neurosurgeons, they're geniuses, right? They know it all. But never actually are we looking at the organ. We're always like, oh, what if your liver or your kidney X, Y, and Z, we measure the blood and you know, we have action steps, but the actual organ itself we don't often talk about or look at, right? So when I found Dr. Amen, and he actually went through and looked at the brain scans that he was providing, and if you look at the images, I mean, it is mind blowing of what a healthy brain is supposed to look like versus an unhealthy brain. And it is miraculously different. And it showcases that the brain can have little indents or holes or trauma essentially, and the trauma doesn't have to be a head injury. Like yes, of course that's one piece, but trauma to the brain can also be caused from toxins, environmental factors, nutrition, poor nutrition, whatever's in our food, excess chronic stress and anxiety, sedentary lifestyle. All of these things affect the organ. And when your organ is affected, you operate differently, right? It just makes sense. And I was, again, this epiphany is like, oh my gosh, why did nobody ever look at my father's brain as he was experiencing so many different character traits that were not him, as we're pumping medications through him, as he's expressing all of these things, we're just giving different concoctions. And what actual doctor just prescribes medication without looking at blood work or the organ or the scan? None of them. None of them. But why does psychiatrist do that? So again, this whole epiphany of like, this needs to be focused on and the awareness brought to it.
Wow. Yeah, it's almost unfathomable at this stage, right? You could see maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago, but even I've heard someone on a podcast talking about the muscle, like muscle as an same idea what you're saying about we don't think of it the way like that. You're not taught that in med school or any of these kind of things, but it's fascinating. So things like brain fog, tension, poor sleep, headaches, migraines, fatigue, that's probably not normal.
Not not normal at all. Not normal at all. Even like if like for example, myself, I overthink and can be very much like, let's go. Not I don't stop. I have a hard time shutting it off. Right? That's not necessarily good either, right? We need to have that balance. So what causes that? Well, if we look at the blood flow that goes to different parts of your brain, not to get like too sciencey, but your brain has so many different areas, right? The prefrontal cortex, that's like your CEO, your executive planning. So my blood flow to my prefrontal cortex is very, very, very heightened. So that might mean my emotional center is not getting as much blood flow, right? So that's why I operate the way that I do. So it's really interesting to bring awareness of just your day to day of am I in my own head? Am I comparing myself all the time? Am I creating all these crazy stories in my head that like, where are they coming from? But it's controlling how I operate, right? It could come back to, where is the blood flow going to your brain? Is it hyper focused on maybe your stress and anxiety center? So that's why you can't control the stress and anxiety. So what's something that we can do, maybe naturally boosting that serotonin and dopamine to kind of level out the playing field, right? So different techniques like that to get an understanding of why you operate the way that you do.
Yeah. When you're saying that, I'm wondering, like, what are some of those techniques, like getting sun in your face maybe early in the morning or at all?
Yeah, yeah. Exercise, getting sun in your face, of course. Your environment. So believe it or not, like of course everything has toxins in that. So you want to really be mindful of your environment, the products that you're using. Nutrition is huge. It is.
Let's talk about that. And even as a precursor to that, sugar. Earlier, you said something about the brain, the stuff we're putting in, and it's so like now we know what do you call it, like type 3 diabetes, right? Alzheimer, but it's because of sugar and it's because of sugar in the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. So eating a lot of processed foods puts you at a higher risk of everything. Like think about it. It's processed. There's going to be so many additives in it. And if you don't know nor understand what the additive is, you probably shouldn't put it in your body. Like just keep it simple. Keep it simple. Like if you don't know what the ingredient is, why are you putting it into our body?
Or if you can't pronounce it, eh? Enter RFK.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So I always say like don't overcomplicate it, because when we overcomplicate things, we don't stick to it, right? But keep your nutrition whole food based. And a big piece of that is, how do we eat to control our blood sugar? Because our blood sugar drives balance in our body, which drives our hormones, right? And then, not to get into it too sciencey, but you want to make sure that you're not having big dramatic spikes, because when you do, that's going to dramatically affect your hormones. So how do we eat to control our blood sugar? Make sure you're building a perfect plate. Have good solid protein, carb, and fat, but all coming from good natural sources. You're going to have energy sustained. Your sugar can be balanced. You're not going to have cravings. You're not going to have energy crashes. You're going to focus more. You're not going to be starving. It's going to prolong your digestion, which is what it's supposed to do.
Right. And so I have a question about fasting as far as everything you just said, because that's a different element. A lot of people I know fasting. I wouldn't say religious, but I fast for 18 hours a day pretty much every day. And then, like you're saying, there's nothing, and then all of a sudden you're spiking it. Um, and so how does that play into it? Or I guess what kind of meals would you eat maybe? Or what do you think about?
Sure. I think fasting helped me heal my gut when I was dealing with a lot of hormonal imbalances and I was having a lot of GI problems. So I think there's a time and a place for fasting, and I think it's very individual. Like we all have very unique brains, we all have very unique stomachs, like microbiomes. So I think if it works for you, amazing and great, do that. But I don't think it's necessary for somebody like if that's not their lifestyle. I think it is important to recognize, most importantly, like sleep is crucial. If you
Number one? Would you say number one?
Yeah.
Like between 7, 8, 9 hours? Okay, I do too. That's what I'm asking. I'm just wondering.
But that's a big piece of why we do fast is, and that's why I wouldn't consider myself a faster, but I kind of intentionally do. I stop my eating early, at least 2 or 3 hours before bedtime, so that it does not affect my sleep. And then again, if we zoom out and just simplify it, food is fuel. So if you're eating close to bed, you're telling your body, hello, it's time to wake up and it's time to function. And we don't want that. We want the rest and to digest and go to sleep. So having sleep problems, move your eating window up, give your body some ample time to rest to get to fall to sleep.
This is awesome conversation. Gut health, you just mentioned it there. And so I know brain health is your thing. You mentioned gut health. What do you know about the vagus nerve?
What do I know about the vagus nerve and in what regard?
I guess just a conversation going on between the brain, the gut. That's always happening there. You said sedentary earlier, so if we're always sitting down, crunched like this, we're not getting the proper blood flow. We're not getting circulation, and just how important is gut health? I know we are talking about brain health. That's your area of expertise, but gut health comes into it.
Well, it's all connected. It is all connected. So if we prioritize the health of our brain, because our brain is going to send the signals of, hey, I'm hungry. Hey, my sugar's low. Hey, that like they're connected. Your brain, they call it your stomach, like your second brain, because they are constantly intertwined. Because again, food is fuel. So you're putting food into your body, and then it's like, hello, we're alert, we're ready to do whatever we need to do throughout the day. So it's so important. And that's why what you eat, I would say nutrition, most people think it's the hardest thing to do, but if we keep it simple and recognize that it's fuel, your brain is going to work better, your stomach is going to be better, right? So it is all connected.
Right. And then you're thinking better, you're making better decisions. That conversation you said earlier, it's not going on a negative spiral. If you're eating just cookies, chips, sugar all the time, it's a lot easier for your brain to just kind of go down here. So when you're at your peak performance or your optimal health, then you can make better decisions, better choices, and create your future. How important is exercise in this?
Oh my gosh, everything, everything. But it doesn't have to be an hour at the gym. It can be just like move your body. It can just be simple walks, like integrating walk, or I have a standing desk so that I'm moving a little bit more. It does not have to be like people always associate working out as like this chore. And if you love it, which I do, it's always been a part of my life, then great. But that doesn't mean that you have to do it. You can incorporate anything that's more fun, like go dancing or out on a hike. It just moving your body is so crucial, but it doesn't have to be painful.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm going to switch gears here towards meditation. Earlier, when you were talking about the brain, I was going to ask you about, and it's more nuanced, is like masculine, feminine. It almost sounds like there's a thing going on there. So can you maybe talk about that and or meditation as
Yeah.
a part of it?
It's one of the tools because we always say like chronic stress and anxiety can affect your brain, which then can affect your decisions, everything else, right? And it's now more than ever, we are all so stressed and we're always looking for ways, what can we do to release stress? And I think exercise can be a part of that. But having breath work or meditation, the power of that is amazing. Like, there's so much science around it, and that's not my total expertise. So I don't know the science right at top of mind, but it is shown that it helps tremendously reduce the stress and anxiety, improving your overall brain performance. And so it can be just simple breath pattern, which can calm your nervous system. For myself, my prefrontal cortex being very heightened, and I'm on constant overdrive. And a big thing for me is, okay, how do I calm myself down? Or from a heightened situation or a hard conversation, rather than continuing it to elevate, which gets nothing productive done, what's one tool that I can use to calm my nervous system with my breath or a simple meditative practice? We all have the power of our breath, which we totally don't appreciate. We take it for granted. But if you can focus on that breath, it calms your nervous system down, really soothing some of that stress and anxiety.
Yeah, that's huge. So then when you calm your nervous system down, you're telling your body you're safe. Everything just becomes a lot easier. The little tiny stressors of the day that happen to everyone don't build up as easily. They don't pile on top of each other as easily. And there is an argument to be made that the breath and the soul could be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't. I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I've heard similar argument, and it's not talked about a whole lot, the power of your breath and the whole meditative state. And it's interesting because we've known little things throughout life of, like, for example, when a woman's giving birth, what do? They give her a breathing pattern to make it through the pain, right? When somebody's having a panic attack, you always see people joking around with the bags, but you're focusing on the breath because it calms the nervous system. So this has been known, but we've just never, I think it's been deemed as like this woo spiritual measure, which it would consider it's a spiritual practice, but we've been integrating this all over for years.
I love it. What is a common myth about brain health that you like to debunk?
Hmm. That's a great question. I would say a common myth is you can't change a hurt or traumatic brain, like a brain injury, or an unhealthy brain. Like, your brain's your brain, you're born with it, but you can change your brain. You're not stuck with a bad brain. If you shift the way that you're living and these simple tools of lifestyle integration with nutrition, with moving your body, with maybe some supplementation integrated, some of these breath work, meditative practices to go throughout your day, understanding your brain type, which is a whole other category. But if we can start to prioritize that, you can change your life and the health of your brain.
What is a brain type?
Yeah, so there are a total of 16 brain types, but the top 5, there are 5 primary brain types, and then from 6 to 16, it's a combination of the 5. So we're all a little bit of each. So you can take the quiz, find out what your brain type is to learn, again, why you operate the way that you do, and then from there you can start to integrate some protocols to help you live a better life and have a healthier brain.
Wow, you learn something new every day. That's awesome. I guess as we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share, and reach out to Amanda. Obviously, you can tell she's passionate and she knows a lot about what she's saying. And I'm excited to go and learn about the 5 brain types, but I kind of ask everyone this question, and this is the Phase 4 podcast, and Phase 4 in the 6-phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani. It's all about creating your future 3 years out. So where is Amanda 3 years from today?
Ooh, wow. That is a great question. I'm such a fast mover, so I'm always like, what does my next year look like? But I would say 3 years from now, I will be making 3 times, 4 times, 5 times the impact, being in bringing these practices, not just consulting, but into bigger corporations all around America, to start really changing the trajectory of life at work, because we spend majority of our times at work. And so my goal is to impact, bring the awareness, focus on brain health so that there's nobody else telling stories about losing somebody that they love to suicide.
Yeah. It's It's not ironic because I don't do irony, but just like yesterday, writing, I was doing something, and I came across this study that in 2022, 75% of the suicides in Canada were from men, and the number was 4,000, which obviously in America there's 350 million people, but we only have 40 million people. And so when you hear 4,000, it's like, wow. And it's just shocking. And that was between the ages of 18 and 39. And I was just like men are suffering in silence, and it's part of this like shove it back down, be a man, all this like stigma, right? So is there a way we can get rid of that stigma or unwind it? I'm sure the numbers in America are larger than what I just mentioned.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, and you brought the point up, is I feel like men have this societal standard of don't show emotion and don't express your feelings. And actually, I'm part of the American Prevention of Suicide Foundation, and they had just released numbers from, gosh, I think it was last year, but I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was millions and millions. And the top industry of loss of suicide was actually construction workers, being male, which male dominant, being at a construction site. And so, um, it's very upsetting because of men keeping things in, and we're always like, and even in corporations when I'm having conversations, a lot of us like, oh, they're men, they're not into health and they're not into this. But I would disagree. Like, look at the numbers, look at the stats. And I would advocate for men, like, it is okay to ask for help. It is amazing to prioritize the health and well-being of yourself. And I think we need to start to normalize that and have those conversations.
Yeah, thanks for that. I wonder, is there like a brain boosting activity you do first thing in the morning to get going? And like it's pretty early today when we're recording this. You're full of energy, you're on fire, you're all light. And is there something you do to get going?
So I am at the gym at 4:30 in the morning every day. I'm a morning person. I'm not saying everybody has to be up that early. But with the amount of time and meetings, that's the time I can go. But I don't always want to go. It's just a matter of that you don't always want to, but you do it. And I do it from a sense of my headspace, because I know, for me, doing something for me, moving my body first thing in the morning, and I always tell myself I'm going to have a great day, because then your brain starts to look for proof all throughout the first thing in the morning. I'm going to have a great day. Your brain starts to look for proof throughout the day to show you that. And because like for example, if you go the opposite way, have you ever heard like when it rains, it pours? Because when you see that it's raining and your brain starts to look for other things that align, oh, it's raining and now it's pouring. And then you hit the red lights and then you hit this. Your brain subconsciously starts to do that. So tell yourself you're going to have a great day immediately, first thing upon waking. Move your body, gives you that natural serotonin boost right in the morning, and you're doing something for you. Like, I don't necessarily work out anymore to look a certain way. Like, let's be honest, we're all vain. We want to look good, but it's really more about my headspace of like, I know that I feel so good and energy wise and stimulated. I'm taking care of my health, moving first thing in the morning, whatever that is, even if it's just walking. So it's a non-negotiable, like setting the non-negotiable and doing it regardless.
That's awesome. I'm gonna ask you about other non-negotiables, but I, if your chronotype is not owl, then if you are an owl, don't listen to this. But for everyone else, try to get up early and try to do those things for yourself before the busyness of the day, before everyone. I get up at 5 a.m. every day, and it's the same thing. It's like I got to get all these small little wins, affirmations, reading, running, exercise, whatever it is, before everyone else wakes up. So that, yeah, because we're so busy, you, it seems like as well, that you can go and serve people with a clear head and with a brain that is performing at its peak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Set yourself up for success. And moving your body, you never regret it. Even if it was a quote unquote bad workout, you always feel better just moving your body, just moving the energy throughout your body.
I think there's something when it's earlier in the day for me, it seems to be more effective. I hate going to the gym, by the way, but it's something you just have to do, right? It doesn't matter. I know for sure my 60, 70-year-old self is saying, thank you, buddy, even though I don't want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's also for me, like it showcases leadership and the priority of health and like even like for your kiddos, your family. And it's just when people like we're human beings, we watch and we compare and we mirror what we like, right? So if people are watching and you don't have to do anything for other people or validation, but you want to showcase that your health is a value and that the more that you take care of yourself, then everybody around you is like, oh, wow, you know what? Maybe I should take care of myself too. Or she's showing up no matter what. Right. So it's really instilling that the health factors and the leadership and having that bleed into, again, how can we make more impact? You can only make more impact if you go first and
Yeah.
by showcase it. And that's how you'll create a ripple effect.
100%. And especially you said something there with kids. Like, so people with kids, this is even more important. They're watching you, even if you don't think so. So if you're just sitting around complaining or watching the news or whatever, they're watching. I told you before about running marathons. So my kids come and or bring them with me, right? Now my kids started running 5K races. They're only 8 years old. And it's like, whoa, they're crushing it, beating all the adults. And it's like,
Amazing.
that's the example, right? So um, I got two more questions, and one of them is, um, I guess I'm gonna have to find it. Where did it go? Oh my God, I apologize.
No, you're fine. We went like 100 different directions here. So
That's how I roll.
love it.
I, uh, so I guess someone starting out, where would they go? If someone is listening, is feeling overwhelmed and struggling with brain fog or burnout, what's one thing they should start today?
One thing is I would create awareness. Create awareness on why you think your brain, like do a self-assessment of when is this brain fog happening, right? When are you feeling overwhelmed? In that moment, let's start to write down all of the things that you're currently doing and look at that list and say, is this good for me? Simple. Sounds silly, but when you write out everything that you're doing throughout your day, and if you're looking at the list and it has the news and scrolling social media, if you ask yourself, is this good for my brain? Probably not. Is this benefiting my goals or my career, what I'm trying to achieve? Well, probably not. Right. So if the simple question, asking that and then start to course correct, right? One thing at a time. Don't try to change everything at once because we all know that doesn't work. One thing at a time. So if it's watching the news in the morning, actually, what's one thing that I can shift in the morning that's going to not bring down my energy? Because let's be honest, it's not going to help your energy.
No. I got two things for that. So awareness is the key for everything, not just this, but every single thing. And things something like a food journal. If you write it down and you got to write down everything, you can't just write down the good parts. But that creates the awareness. And it doesn't even have to be the awareness, oh, that I ate too many pieces of cake, whatever. It could be the awareness that, oh, I notice that every time after 6 o'clock, that's when I start slipping, which is natural. We wake up, we have all this willpower, and it slowly declines throughout the day. The second thing, I have a tool I use with clients called the N90 protocol, and it's just to write a list of 4 things that you want to change about your life, that you're trying to improve. Only if you want to change. If you don't want to change, good. Not for you. But that what we do with that list, we write 4 things that we want to change in the next 3 months. And then we only look at the top one. We rank them in order, but we only do one. And the reason why is exactly like you're saying, that you do that one, get it locked in, turn that into a new habit, and then you can add on it. And then they start to stack on each other. And within a year, man, your whole life will change.
Stacking the wins creates the life-changing results.
Amazing. So before I ask my final question, is there something I didn't mention that you want to talk about? Something I always kind of let the guests take it where they want. So if you have something to sell it, a message of hope, of inspiration, or if you want to wrap it all together, take it away.
I would just say that you're not, if you don't love your current reality, you have the power to change it. If you are feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling stressed, if you're not feeling good in your body, you do have control. You have more power than you think. So just start with creating the awareness and taking a step, one step at a time. One step at a time is going to progress you so much faster and try to change everything overnight. And everything is on my social media. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, all Amanda Maddalena. I'm always open to chat more and to help any way that I can.
Amazing. Martin Luther King Jr. said, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, my last question is always, how can people reach you? But you just got there. So maybe, I don't know, tell us something about yourself. Maybe we don't know.
Oh boy. Man, well, I live in Buffalo, New York, so it is always freezing and snowing all the time over here. But I wouldn't change it. Everything does happen for a reason in life. And, having a business here, then moving everything online, and with everything that happened with my father, I'm closer to my mom. So just everything does happen the way, even at times when it's super hard and you were like, why is this happening to me? How is this my life? Like never playing the victim and always just trying to find the lesson in it and the good. Even it might feel impossible, and it will. It took me a couple of months, but looking for the light and asking yourself, what can I learn from this? Because there's never any failure. There's never failure, but you choose to be either in victim or not. So decide to not be a victim and move forward.
That's perfect. We're going to leave it right there. Amanda, I'm so grateful for your time today. This was such an awesome conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.